All right, guys, we might as well get going today. So, welcome, the Freefly Survival Guide. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to mentally, physically, and financially prepare yourself for the world of three-dimensional flying. So everything that's after belly flying. I asked a bunch of my students questions about their learning process and how they thought that they could wish stuff they'd known earlier. And so I piled a bunch of information together and put it all in some slides. So, fingers crossed. Hey, a little bit about me. So I'm originally Australian, married a pretty little English girl and moved here in 2015. And I've been jumping for a decade. I started working at iFly Basingstoke in 2015 and made my way all the way up to the level 4, quit, and then started JST Coaching. So now this is all I do professionally. I've competed in indoor dynamic, 2-way and 4-way, Freefly, Freestyle, and speed skydiving. And I'm the current speed record holder at 515 kilometers an hour, or 318 miles per hour for the local folk. So this speech is about really the advanced parts of skydiving. Once you've finished FS flying, or got your FS1 and you want to progress, you really need to be honest with yourself. Are you ready to take that step? So, before we get off our tummy, can you turn up to any drop zone with your own kit, knowing higher kit, and knowing that it's suitable and everything for you to get on that plane with? Can you do someone else's flight line checks? Do you know what exit order, whatever you're going to practice is going to be a part of the jump plan? Where jump run is, on where you're supposed to be going, how to exit, level stable and dock with 4 other random people you don't know, break off safely, pull your own parachute, enter into a canopy pattern, flare, hopefully stand it up, and then pack it. If you can't do all of that as if it's your normal day job, work on that. And that's a big part of this. And whilst you're then progressing, can do that and then progress into the free fly bit, get yourself a canopy course. Because skydiving is 2 parts, the free fall and the canopy. So you might as well be working on the canopy stuff whilst you're practicing the other stuff as well. So what is 3D flying? The freedom of movement in any orientation in a 3-dimensional space. Now, I haven't really thought this through because last year we had a normal mic'd up, so I'm now going to have to try and talk with the doll and hold the microphone at the same time. So let's talk about some orientations. So, we all know belly flying. Then we have back flying. Then we have head up. Then we have head down. So 4 simple orientations. Then we have movements. So we use the head up for it. We have forward and backwards. Slow fall and fast fall, or if you're in tunnel flying, up and down. Turns left and right, and side slides. So each one of those orientations has those movements. If you're going to progress through, this is one style of flying. So we either have dynamic, static, or freestyle. So if we start with static, we have exactly the same. So if you fly statically on your back, statically on your feet, or statically on your head, and you have to be able to do all of the ranges of motion in them. So if we show head down, be able to go forward and backwards in control, left and right, fast fall and slow fall, and side sliding. A part of that is be able to transition. So if we talk about sit flying, you need to be able to transition from your back to your feet, from your feet to your belly, and from your belly to your feet and your back. So be able to transition from all of those motions through. If you talk about head down, we need to be able to go from our feet to our head through a backflip, or from our feet to our head through a front flip. So simple transitions. Another part of static is to be able to take a grip. So if you can't present a grip and let someone try and be able to dock onto you, or be able to move to a formation to the point to get you into the right place to grab that dock without making it some form of combat activity. And then once you get to that point, then you can really start hammering in your FF1 and FF2 skills. If you go through to the Freefly manual, it's all very clear of what you have to be able to do. And it's just written in a bit of a language because the person who wrote it is just a little bit, had to write it like a manual. So if you talk to a coach and sit down with them, you'll be able to really nut through and show exactly what it all is. Once we've got our FF1 and FF2, we can move into the world of VFS, so vertical formation skydiving, involving all of those skill sets to be able to do that with 3 of your friends. Then you go slightly bigger than that, so into sequentials, so multi-point bigger ways, and then even bigger than that, big ways, so single point skydives. But if that was your thing, there's another speech up the top there at the moment. So, through that conversation there, we talked about all those different orientations. Come on in, mate. Welcome. Or not. I want you to see and try and pick out as many of those things I just talked about in this little footage. So this video has, give me 1 second. Footage of Omni, the current VFS champions, doing part of their stuff when we were in America. I jumped out and filmed around them. Part of it is a fun jump with the same guys after Nationals. So we all linked together and just had a bit of a let off of steam. And then the last part of the video is a sequential weekend I did in Belgium, in Berlin, at the Hurricane Factory. So that's one's a little bit more complex. So. And I excuse the music. All right, so there we go. So you can see all of those different static skills and all of those transitions. And you can see once you learn how to do those transitions, it can get even more complex to the point where you start doing them through other people's burbles, over each other, bigger formations, everything's linked. Now, if staying still and holding hands isn't your thing, then our dynamic might be the next step for you. So, dynamic flying is all about using your body as efficiently as possible to fly as fast as you can. So, in the world of dynamic, we have belly and back, because just like an airplane, you can use either side of it, right? So, if we talk about belly flying first, if we apply more pressure to our shins and gain more pressure on our chest, we can create lift, so we're feet low or head up. Now this would create a backward motion. If you're going to put this in the sky, it'd be head up tracing backwards. If you're going to turn this and put it in a wind tunnel, it'd be head up out face. If you bring it back down onto its belly, apply more pressure to your forehead and allow your legs to lift, it'll be belly tracking. Now if you turn that, it'll be out face carving in the wind tunnel. So the more wind speed you have, the steeper you can go and the faster you can go. If we bring it down and put it back on our back, and we apply more pressure to our feet and gain lift on the upper of our back, we start to create forward motion. So this would be head up tracing forwards. And a matter of turning it is in face carving in the tunnel. If you bring it down onto your back, apply pressure onto your head, it's backtracking. You turn it, get it steeper, that's carving head down. Now once you learn how to switch in between the two, so switch from carving left and right, then you have freedom of movement in that way. Now these carves have the same movements as earlier. So you can carve in and tighter, up and down, slide in your position to fly exactly where you need to once you've learned how to fly that carve. Once you can fly these carves, you then need to transition. So if you're going to transition from back carving to belly carving, or vice versa, it's through a layout. If you want to go through from the head up component, in face to out face, it's a transition over your feet. And these motions are what makes you able to do TR3. So you've come off on a backtracking jump, it goes through the vertical, onto its belly, and this way. So that's the matter of processing, of learning how to lay out through a vertical. With this skill set, you can then learn the dynamic dive pool. So you would have seen all of the international competitions. This is all they're doing. Those skill sets all put into a dive to be able to fly together. Right. Now, back to the bit everyone loves, bit of video. So, a couple of the original flyers all got together to that same wind tunnel that I was doing the sequential stuff in, and they put this together over a weekend. There's actually one of the original UK flyers, Adam Matacola, on here as well. So he was really fundamental in the developing of this routine. Whilst watching this video, the best thing I suggest you do is pick out one of the flyers and follow that one flyer. Because this may all look very complex with 8 people moving around, but all those simple moves, the carves, the 4 carves left and right, head up and head down, and the 2 layouts is all they're doing. And there we have it. Did following one flyer make that seem any more simple? If you look at the whole performance, it's very mind-blowing. But watching one person fly around with the simple knowledge. Now, those guys have been flying together or have been in this industry for at least 15 to 20 years. And 3 of them have been world champions, or 4 of them have been world champions. So that's why they were all together in one spot. So, let's see if I can move on to the last style of flying I'm going to talk about today. We have freestyle. So, freestyle as its own style is more of a solo activity. So, you move through into having something that combines dance and flying and flips and tricks. So if going fast and pushing and flying tight isn't really your thing, hold on a second. I've missed one. Hold on a second. We saw dynamic in the tunnel. Now we're going to see a bit of dynamic in the sky. We can edit this later, hopefully. So, the 2 skydiving videos I'm going to show you, a big way we did after the World Championships. So we did a big tracking skydive with a bunch of the world's best flyers. And then when I was in Australia, I caught up with a good friend of mine, Mason Corby, and we put a lot of that tunnel activity you've seen into a skydive. So rather than just thinking about going hard and fast, thinking about actually flying and transitioning in motion and movement. So, enjoy. There we go. The world is back in order. So you can see those levels and transitions through dynamic, especially at the start of the skydive with Mason there, that transition through his belly, gently through and onto his back and round through and to head up, is all learnt through that slow progression of pushes and pulls and carves and transitions. Now, we move on to the world of freestyle. So, it is more of a solo activity. It is about flying expressively through dance and flying. It's a combination of flips and tricks, and it is both done competitively and in front of judges. So you have free routines, which is your activity to present anything you want to the judges over a minute routine in the tunnel, and in the sky you have 45 seconds. Now, in the sky, obviously, you need one cameraman and one performer. So the performer will be doing more tricks, but the real skill is actually come from the cameraman, being able to follow that performer and fly everything the same. The same judges at a national level and an FAI level judge the same thing. So they travel the world and they either go to the outdoor championships and the indoor. So the same skill sets and the same tricks and flips are all judged by the same people. So the two videos I have today are of Dave Reeder, who's was a amazing English freestyler. He sadly passed away. And the skydiving clip is from the current world champions. So this video here of Dave was in 2015. And it was the first indoor world championships. So he was really pushing the barrier back in 2015 on what he's provided here. So there we go. Come on, let me out. Boom. So, the next video is going to be of a Skydive freestyle performance from XP Ascend. So Jake is the cameraman and Jason is the performer. And these guys won the current last World Championships in Arizona. So this video has two components. It has an outside camera so you can see what Jake is flying as well, and then the actual performance of what Jake was filming. So who do you appreciate more, Jake or Jason? Okay, so enough about the flying and what can be achieved, and back to what you guys are probably going to have to do to get there. So, to tunnel or not to tunnel? There is some purists left in the sport that say you need to learn how to free fly by getting out of an airplane. Now, to actually participate in free flying with each other in the sky and get better, you do. To learn how to fly your body and perform those skills, they've all been learnt in the wind tunnel from those guys. It's pure time in the wind. You can rack up 1,000 minutes of flying your body in a matter of weeks in a wind tunnel, if you have the money, compared to 1,000 skydives, which is only 45 seconds long. That is the difference between 20 years ago and modern culture of flying. That's the big difference. We have these guys, Jake and Jason, the current world champions, do half an hour every day together because they work at XP, and that's all they do. So they jump in the afternoon and they fly in the morning every single day, and that's all they do for a living, and that's why they've made it. Tunnel time allows you to break any bad habits. If you have someone out get out with you and out of an aircraft, a cameraman is only going to film you. They land, you watch the video, and they go, yes, your arms are this far back. Let's go do it again and try and pull them forward. In a wind tunnel, you can actually hold onto a body, push your chest back, and get you to feel exactly where the wind is coming from and how not to develop those bad habits. Once you've broken those bad habits or have learnt the correct way to fly, or the modern way of flying, you then take it out of an aircraft, and the only difference is you have a rig on your back, and you go, oh, I feel that slight difference, and then you carry on and you continue to learn to fly. Now, if you do have your FF1, and you've gone and done a sit-fly jump with someone, and you both can't work towards each other and actually get the skydive to happen, then you're both probably just sit-falling. So you know how to hold a sit position, but you can't move. You can't go slower. You can't go forward. You can't do those ranges of motion and movement. And that's where learning to fly has the aspect to it. How quick do you want it? Do you want to learn to sit fly this season? Do you want it last season? I have some students that have gone from just getting their FS1 to joining on some of the high-end level groups at Boogie 2 at Langer at the end of the season, purely because they spent most of their winter in the wind tunnel and they spent the entire time practicing towards it. So that's that point of how quick do you want it? And the last thing is, what else are you going to do in the terrible weather? Gear. Once you get off your belly, and people talk about having a free fly suitable rig, think about free fly suitable rig as anything that's not your belly. So if you want to go tracking and you want to try and get steeper, that's not belly. So you need a rig that is going to be tighter in all aspects so it won't open on you. So here's my rig from Vector. Now it has, I'm going to put this down. Actually. It's going to be awkward. This rig was designed for speed. So I sat down with Rosie from UPT and we tried to get something that wouldn't open. So we start from the top. Vectors don't normally have tuck tabs, but they built tuck tabs for me. So you can see that is never just going to blow open. Now there's nothing wrong with the magnets for normal free flying that's designed for it, but at 500 kilometers an hour, the magnets don't suffice. So that's why I had nice hard tuck tabs. My reserve closing pad is extremely tight. It's not going to come out anywhere. this has actually been extended to be even longer, so my pin won't be exposed. And my Freefly pud is tucked away. So you can see that that is never going to be exposed either. Once we've finished, you're more than welcome to come up and have a check of this rig. Thank you. Audibles. So as soon as you start doing something that you don't have your hands in front of your face, so if you're tracking and you have your hands back, or you're trying to sit fly and you have something that's completely out of the way, I suggest you have 2 audibles. Because no matter how good they are, and equipment will always fail. So I suggest you get 2 audibles. Belly flying is dangerous enough. The only times I've ever actually been hurt has been on 8-way Starcrest skydives, which is learning to get your big way ticket in Australia. But a full face helmet is very important, especially if you're learning to free fly in the tunnel, because if you play in wind next to glass and your face hits it, you want your money maker to survive through. And suits. If you want to learn to fly your body and the dynamic flying, the tighter the suit, the better. Baggier suits, especially if you've got a little bit of drag around your legs and a little bit of drag on your arms, will be better for static flying. It's physics. You are holding still and creating a surface area to drag on. Now, if you are 40 kilos and you want to fly static, you're going to need to get a tight suit, and you're probably going to need to wear some lead. One of the best VFS flyers in this country, Weed is a little bit older than me, and she is about 45 kilos, and she flies with the biggest boys in the town. She wears 6 kilos of lead, and she has a very tight suit on. Now, I'm closer to 90 kilos, and I wear a slightly baggier suit to do anything vertical, especially if I'm going to try and teach anything with students. Pure physics doesn't. You can't work it. There's no matter how much surface area I can create as a heavier dude to try and fly with someone lighter. But if we're going to fly dynamically, it'd be like having soft, baggy ball tires on a car. That's all it is. So you want to know where the edge of your blade is to be able to fly. Apart from getting a new profile picture, skydiving is really about the crowd. There's a FOMO, a fear of missing out, looking towards that next crowd or those people that are doing that cool stuff already, the higher groups at the boogies. If that's not what your crowd's going to be when you first start, you need to find the people that are your similar level and come and have some fun. Do the small, low group stuff. Create a little community for yourself to progress yourself along with. And then as you get better and as you decide you want to invest more time and money into that part, you may move up into those other groups. But a lot of the guys you see flying together, so the guys that we saw flying with the Omni lot, they started out at the university group, bus university group, and they've just been friends since they were all in their early 20s, and they're all about mid-30 now. So, well, they're not, they're about 32. So that's all they've done. They've just stayed in their little crowd and kept progressing together and keep working their way through. Now, we have plenty of local scramble events going on. The Altitude Brothers, Brian Cummings, Ryan Arkle, get a part of those little events. Get to see, come along. Even if you don't want to come to fly, turn up like this, meet some people, see what goes on, see what you need to be able to achieve to be a part of it, and then join in. And that's all it is. And just keep progressing along with a bunch of people. So, the mentality of learning. Have an experimental mindset, not an expectational mindset. Everyone is learning a new skill when it comes to this. If you haven't learnt a new skill in a few years, you might find this a little bit difficult to learn. It's one of those points. You just need to be happy that you are progressing. Everyone learns at a different pace. I've got some students that are still working on sit-fly after coming to the tunnel for a year because they really enjoy it and they're quite happy to progress along quite slow. And I've got other students that went from never being in a wind tunnel to sharing, competing in four-way dynamic in 12 months because that's all they wanted to achieve and that's all they've done. Being coachable. Most people that get to this point in their life that can afford to spend this money on a sport like this have achieved something, right? You've got to a certain point where you can go, I've got enough spare money to do what I want, which means you already know something to a high level. You then need to be able to take yourself a step back and be coachable again. Listen to what the person you're paying to, what the information they've got, and believe them, because that's what's going to make you progress faster. If you don't enjoy learning each one of the aspects of this sport, you will quit. Because I've been doing it for 10 years, and I still go get coaching purely because there is more to learn. It never ends. People do this for a living, and they still go back and go learning. So that's what you really need to do. There's no end goal. You can't go, oh, I can learn to backfly. Done. The next goal is still in front of you. You're still learning. It never ends. And then once you can do it all, you want it to look better, or you want to go faster, or you want to do it cleaner, or you'll find some trick that you're like, oh, I want to learn that again. It doesn't ever end. So just be quite happy in this enjoyable learning process. We talk about the click. The click is where between one jump when you don't get it and the next jump you go, that's what I'm supposed to do. Learning to backfly in the wind tunnel. One rotation you don't get it. The coach says 2 words to you that you somehow understand and it gets you, and then you can backfly. A lot of that is relaxing into what you're actually doing. If you set a timeline or I buy 60 jumps, I want this skill, and you don't get it, you'll just be defeated. Don't set a time limit or a jump number or anything that you're going to get it by. Just be quite happy at what goes on. What will be, will be. If you can dial down your emotions through this learning process, like you're all financially and emotionally invested in it, but if you can just slow it down and enjoy it, then you won't have such a sensory overload where you can't actually take in the skills and be listening and be fully aware of what's happening. And do your homework. All of this information that I've brought up in the last slides has been a simple YouTube video, a simple Facebook post. It's a little bit like, oh, well, I want to learn about that. Type into Google, talk to a coach, talk to an instructor, find out exactly what you want to learn and keep asking the questions, because everyone who's already learnt it or does it for a living wants to share the information with you. That's why we do it for a living. But if you don't have your own investment at home to then come forward and ask direct questions, I could talk about back layouts, the one action of back layouts, for hours, and the techniques and the processes, purely because that's what I do for a living and I absolutely love it. But if you don't come to me with a question about it, then am I going to bring up to you conversations about back layouts? I would have in the first 5 years, but not anymore. Now, physical activity. The top one talks for itself. This is a physical activity. You can't actually be doing this freedom of movement in a three-dimensional space without having some basis level of fitness. So, anaerobic, your ability to lift weights or move or push or be able to hold some guy back as he slams into you in a transition. To be able to do an hour's worth of tunnel. If you can't run for 20 minutes, are you going to be able to fly sit fly or fly dynamically for 5 minutes and push around everyone? Mobility, to be able to actually have some agility and movement, be able to move your body in all the different spots. Are your hips stuck from sitting at a desk for 40 hours a week? And proprioceptive ability, be able to know where your hands are. I'm going to dob my wife in because when I was teaching her to backfly, she was like this, rather than being square like this. And the arguments we had over that was horrendous and had to be proved on video that I was right and not her. And all of that will make you have the endurance to do an hour's worth of tunnel a day if you go away on a tunnel camp, or do 10 jumps in a day. Because if you get to jump 10 and you're already tired and you're feeling sore, you're adrenaline fatigued, then your learning goes out the window. Okay. Now, this is a direct list of activities that people have trouble doing. You need each one of these bits in your process of learning to fly. So I'm going to call up, can I have a demo? Don't sit near the front. So we're sit flying, okay? Can you put your knees? Oh, I'm just going. It's a bit awkward because I've got to yell or talk to us. Can you put your knees together for us? And keep your knees together and pull your heels apart. See that rotation? If you can stand up and have a look in. Now, how far can you go with that? How far can you keep your knees together and keep putting your feet apart? And now sit up straight. See that pain and groan? That is how you sit fly. So now if we add some thoracic mobility into it, so I just want the upper half of your back to push your chest up and out. It's basically a stress position. So if we go a little bit higher with your head and back, we're not at the 30-second mark yet. So there you go. So those are two activities that you can just out of those is learning to sit fly. Thanks, Demo. Now, hip isolation is very important for if you're doing any transitions, to be able to hold your hips and keep them isolated and locked and be able to move your chest and body around an isolated hip is a learnt skill. Shoulder strength. So if you're going to be learning to sit fly, now we don't sit fly on our arms and push down, but they will be out and pushing down on the wind. When you're learning head down, they'll be out and lifting up. So it's motions both strong this way and this way against the wind. And working inverted or upside down. So when you turn upside down, right becomes left and left becomes right. Up becomes down and down becomes up. Add that to the stress of being on a net in a wind tunnel you're paying for, and then try and relax and feel your feet. So one of the hardest skills I have with trying to teach people to learn to fly head down is which hand is their left and which hand is their right, and which way to turn and which way to look. and we do a bunch of different skills. And a lot of it comes from back carving in a back fly position, looking back and letting it being in a relaxed body position you can already fly, and then learning to navigate. I've had students hang off the end of a desk chair that rotates to be upside down. Some of the students that really struggle with learning to fly head down, and they spent hours learning to catch balls upside down, learning which way is and right, pointing to different markers, just to be comfortable being upside down. Now, me personally, I really struggled with this, and it was part of the reasons why I loved teaching it. It's because I spent hours trying to figure out how to break through the pattern to the point where I had 2 different colored gloves on, and I had an L and an R written on my hands to figure out which way I needed to go doing complex dynamic carving stuff. So, and that's all of it. Right. Financial. Now, no one wants to talk about this because all you do is you just pay for it and it's done. It's happy. And you lie about how much you spend on it to your wife. But if you work out how much tunnel time you can do, how many skydives, and how much money you want to spend on coaching each month. So you have 12 months. You have winter months. You have summer months. You're going to spend more money on tunnel during the winter, and you're going to spend more money on skydiving during the summer and beers. But you need to work out that, okay, so I'm going to do 30 minutes of tunnel, 15 minutes of tunnel a month. I'm going to do 10 jumps, and I'm going to get paid for 2 days' worth of coaching. And then that can be your pattern. Now, if the skydives don't work out because the weather's terrible or the weather's better so you don't do the tunnel, then you shift the funds either way. And it's got to be the money that's fun money. If you spend money that's supposed to be going on your bills, and you get to the end of that money, you're like, okay, I've got $5,000. 3 of that probably should have been spent on fixing the car, but it doesn't really matter. You get to the end of that $5,000 and go, oh, no, I still shit at zip line. Still don't have a car that works. You'll then take more time off skydiving and more time off tunnel and the skill fatigue, and it just sets you back. I've got one student that's been flying 15 minutes of tunnel for the last 2.5 years, and he is now up and sharing in the 4-way head up at the Altitude Brothers, got his FF1, his TR2, and his TR3. It's like, he was just quite happy. He's got 5 kids, and he's got to run his own business, and that's his process. So we had this chat 5 or 6 years ago. That's all he did. Loves it. Comes along every month, 15 minutes. That's it. And that was the deal he made. There you go. So, back on to doing your homework. Finding your end goal will give you something that you're going to start working towards. Along that way, it will change. When I first started skydiving, I was the typical wingsuit-based video guy going, oh, I'm going to do that. 2 years in, I stopped that. Then I found dynamic flying, which I really wanted to be a part of, and that's why I went and got a job in the tunnel. And that's how much I sacrificed. I quit my job, moved country, started doing everything towards what I wanted to do. So my movement has changed. And then I found speed skydiving. So I no longer don't compete in the dynamic. I do speed outdoor skydiving. So it's that point of you just will slowly find what you actually want to achieve, and you'll keep going that way. All instructors and all coaches have been through the process. And we love talking about ourselves. So you can ask those exact straight questions, and we'll tell you what happens along the way. The modern world and the internet is absolutely amazing. So, YouTube, Facebook, Rockstar, Instagrammers. Liam Byrne is a UK flyer that's come really far in the last few years. If you can all follow him on Instagram and make some lewd comment on it, it'd be absolutely amazing for me. And the more knowledge you have, the better questions you'll be able to answer. So just like that process. Now, flying videos, the IBA is what iFly runs by. It's got everything from your first belly flying session all the way through to the dynamic dive pool. And the second YouTube channel there is Down Under Dynamics, which has Mason Corby's, the guy we saw me doing the skydive with. He has an amazing YouTube video that talks about in-depth videos on flying even further forward. The IBA channel is more of 1.5 minute videos. Mason talks about how to sit fly for 30 minutes on a YouTube video. So get on and have a watch of those videos. And there are some stretching videos here for thorax mobility and internal rotation. I have those set on a message. So if you'd like to come see me, I can just send you those messages and get that link straight through to you. Last quick one. What do you want to learn next? Find a coach, set a budget, and get at it. That's it. So, any questions? I should have a runner at the back there. Everyone loves no questions. So, if there isn't any questions, we've got one. Hold on.
Sorry. The video where there was 8 flying in and around the tunnel, is that accessible on YouTube?
Yeah, so that is the Flying Expendables video.
Okay.
If you come find me after, I'll be able to share the link with you.
Cool. Thank you.
If there's no questions, I have a booth down in the gallery today. So if there's anything you want more in-depth questions about anything I've talked about, come down and see me.